I'm not looking for escapism, I just want to escape.
Welcome back to my disembodied voice. Today, I want to talk about how our minds remember and encode information when it comes to movies and why some movies and their scenes are so unforgettable. So, using some basic NLP references, which is neuro-linguistic programming, I want to look at how mood affects memory and appreciation of film. What makes a great film great? Actors, character development, special effects, fight choreography, believability, realism? Well, the last two are actually the same thing and blend into a singular and essential aspect of what makes a great movie: mood. Let's start by asking you to pick your favourite movie scene. Think about it for a minute and recall the aspects that make it stand out. For my example, I'm going to choose the T-Rex stomping out of its paddock in Jurassic Park. I remember being in the cinema and, whilst I knew it was coming at that moment the jeeps broke down in front of the wire fence, I wasn't quite ready for when the king of the dinosaurs stomped out and I just sat there open-mouthed. So what made that scene so amazing? Well, the framing in CGI was great, the rain and darkness and size of the Rex compared to the puny humans, and that roar was incredible. However, from the moment the jeeps break down and the ominous storm blows in, the scene is built up. We know something big is out there and, having hidden the Rex up to this point, its arrival pays off. In neurolinguistic programming, we look at the mind and how it remembers and encodes data. The mind remembers through our senses. So, pictures, sounds, smells, taste, touch, all create the memories that we recall. Basically, as everything in the brain is through synapses, electrical impulses, and chemical changes, we store memories based upon the information we receive through our senses and the mood we were experiencing in the actual experience at that time. Back to Jurassic Park, and from the way the camera sits, the lighting and the sheer size of the monster, which we have only been able to imagine and construct from images through books, other films and toys up until then, leaves a lasting impression. Remember, no human alive has ever seen a T-Rex. We have only seen one in films, books, animatronic models in zoos and theme parks, and toys we played with as a child. And it's not just the dinosaur from that scene. We recall everything else from that moment because it was so evocative. From alien worlds in Star Wars, the jungle in Predator, and so many other examples, the setting and locations are important. They work because they create realism, and, in the first Predator for example, the jungle is almost a character itself as we search every branch, feel the presence of the antagonist loom over us, and realise that these men are in a real formed world which helps solidify the threats. The setting, the backdrop, the lighting, the images, all these things in great films trigger the parts of our brains into believing and then remembering where we are as we are so absorbed in this world. The images are so vivid that our brain encodes them into these memories so we can suddenly recall them if triggered from anything in conversations, adverts, and even someone quoting something at us. So let me just say, what's in the box? And let your mind do the rest. You can see it, can't you? The orange jumpsuit, Brad Pitt waving his gun, Morgan Freeman begging him to stop. You know it already because a verbal hint activates the memory and those lovely images are back in our head. The film I'm talking about, of course, is Se7en, and I think Se7en is a unique film for me in terms of how it uses the city as a character and a setting all in one. Now, I could have used Chris Nolan's Dark Knight or Michael Mann's Heat, for example, of how a city becomes a character, but for me, the hellish, unnamed cityscape of Se7en is the most beautifully horrible thing your mind will see in a film. Now, there are many serial killer films out there in the world, but there are few that stand the test of time. Se7en starts out relentlessly gloomy inside a grubby apartment where there's been a murder. The police don't care as it's such a frequent occurrence, and Morgan Freeman gets set up as someone losing their faith in humanity as he pores over the inevitable tragedy with a depression that irritates his colleague. We also meet Brad Pitt, and his character gets set up, but then Morgan Freeman's detective references the location. He questions why anyone would want to be reassigned here. Straight away, we can see what he means, because in this place, the rain falls everywhere, it's crowded, people are pushing past each other, and we can feel the grey unpleasantness which permeates the air. Gloomy, ominous, smelly, cramped, wet. We can feel the city, even though we are separated by a screen and we are on our couches at home. After the fabulous 9-inch nail scored intro, we start spending time in the city for the gluttony kill and the rain keeps coming. The making of Se7en states they used the rain so they wouldn't rely on good weather to film, but also because the city represented the topic in the book. Se7en obviously is about the 7 deadly sins, Dante's purgatory, or hell itself. And this city is a form of purgatory. We seldom see close-ups of faces. It rains relentlessly, and the people in it are all lost souls. This city reeks of poverty. A grayscale permeates every polygon of the frame, the locations are grim, overcrowded, and it's loaded with either human or actual physical garbage. Even when they raid the apartment of the sloth killing, it's as if the alternative dimension in Silent Hill got stuck on buffering and has now rusted into a black mould-infested corpse of a building. As the film itself deals with a serial killer and his obsession with seeing baseness and wickedness, apathy and societal collapse, it's vital the city represents this. Somerset is perhaps closer to the killer's ideology than he likes to admit, in terms of humanity falling apart, that is. Take the beautifully shot scene of when he's on his way to the library and he looks out the window of a cab at cheap liquor stores and a dying street while polythene-coated policemen move bodies and crowds just aimlessly shuffle through this endless purgatory. The nicer areas of the city, such as the aforementioned library Morgan Freeman's on his way to and the lawyer's building of the greed killing, are all sparsely decorated, but they remain under the grayscale. Only Mill's apartment has a warming glow, a sign of the love and tenderness between Mills and his wife. Even the scenes in cafes are cramped, low lit, the awful food highlighted so you can almost smell the grease. At no point does Se7en relent, and, best exemplified when Mills and Somerset knock on the killer's door and a chase ensues, do we see the real depth of this purgatory. A rabbit warren of overcrowded poverty, lost souls skulking around the streets, garbage all over the sidewalks, people swearing and shouting and telling everyone to shut up even though there's a gunfight going on beneath them. The halls of the killer's apartment is so grim and depressing. This is a film about a serial killer, using sin as a motive, and the threat is that the killer is almost inhuman. He's even referenced as the devil by Morgan Freeman's Somerset. He has endless financial resources, a seemingly mystical technique of not leaving fingerprints, and an ability to get people to do whatever he wants them to do, be it eat themselves to death or cut 1 pound of flesh by self-mutilation. Like the shark in Jaws, and like Jurassic Park's T-Rex, the reveal will never be as good as our imagination. But if we want to keep the feeling of dread, threat, and also give us a reason to invest or side with our characters, then the environment, the monster's hunting ground, needs to immerse us in our preconceptions and immerse our senses so it feels real and vivid. Somerset believes the city is lost and his hope in humanity is gone. He mentions it to both his boss and Detective Mills. Mills, on the other hand, sees good in people and came to this purgatory to make a difference. He has hope, he has heart. Somerset's is all but gone. I mentioned earlier that he's close to John Doe in ideology, but I don't mean ideology as in Somerset wishes to kill people. It's in turn that you look around and you see that there is nothing in people anymore that really is worth bothering with, worth saving. It's going to hell. What's the point? In the cafe scene where Gwyneth Paltrow tells Somerset that she is pregnant with David's child, she discusses the city. She said she moved here for David and is a teacher, but the conditions are horrible here. She feels too overwhelmed and cannot see herself working in this horrible environment. In this scene, the backdrop, scenery and mood all reinforce that. We see the disgusting canteen, the noise, everything going on around her. The foreground is their faces, very expressive, David Fincher at his finest, whereas the background is just an absolute hellhole. The city in Se7en could have been a whole raft of tower blocks set in daylight. Think of Cabrini Green in the original Candyman movie. Or a bustling metropolis like in The Dark Knight. But this endless rain, the faceless, desperate and disparate people who drift on the sidewalks, the poverty and desperation, the wretched misery that scorches the eyes. The endless rain in Se7en is acidic to the colour palette. It's literally washing everything away. It adds to the misery and claustrophobia of a decaying existence. This place really is Dante's Purgatory. The only time it stops raining is when the killer turns himself in and we head off to the "What's in the box?" scene in a desert of power lines which just stretches on forever. A form of limbo maybe, or is this John Doe's ideological hell itself? We stand now in a sepia of barren openness where everything burns with heat and orange. This diametric opposite changes the tone, but it doesn't change the overall feeling. The imagery and scenes in Se7en add to the mood, and, great writing aside, the graffiti-lined brothels where the lust-killing happens, the cockroach-infested homestead of the obese gluttony man, the streets constantly gridlocked in traffic, and the high-rise rabbit warrens of trapped people. It's hard to think of another film which takes such misery and makes it so paradoxically beautiful in terms of tone, mood, and focus, which only adds to the story. We encode through our senses, and, as we cannot smell, touch, or taste movies, well, not yet anyway, then these senses are replicated through visual and auditory. And with great mood and setting, we will never forget the time we watched Mills and Somerset go up against John Doe. Anyway, that's all for me this week. So until next time, I'll catch you later.